Well, hello and welcome. This is Matthias 76. Together we are decoding the deception. Sorry for the delay this evening in getting our broadcast up and going. Right before we're ready to go, right before I would usually start playing that intro, the 5 minutes before the broadcast begins, boom, whole system crashes. I had to reboot the computer, start everything back up again, and I counted as I was catching my breath as the intro was playing. There are 8 different things that I have to have set up, lined up, arranged to be able to do this live stream, and managed to get it all done relatively quickly, much more quickly than I ever would have thought I would be able to. So thankful for that. Said a few prayers along the way. Well, tonight we're going to start with considering our Good Shepherd, Jesus Christ, and then we're going to turn to those who are not so good of shepherds. We're going to take a look at the Rockefeller Foundation's takeover of medicine. We're going to look at the Nazi Bayer pharmaceutical, Bayer connection, and then we're going to take a peek at Pfizer's less than stellar legal history. Now, a couple different things have led to choosing these particular items for the broadcast tonight. My wife has shared with me this very interesting video that we will be talking about in the near future. But it's this gal who's just examining, she's an herbalist, a naturalist type person, and she's just examining all of these peer-reviewed studies that have been done showing the benefits for treating whatever you want to call it, the COVID, cornholio, treating that with natural, homeopathic, herbal things. And that got me thinking about this data that we're going to look at tonight. And as we look at the different things that we see go on, as we see those, the powers that be but should not, and the authority that they wield and the power that they have and the things that they do, there's a passage of scripture that often comes up, and it's here in the middle of these verses we're going to take a look at tonight. And let's go ahead and read those, and then we'll talk about it. This is from John 10, verse 9. Jesus says, "I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep." That's the important part. Jesus Christ is the good shepherd. And that picture from the 23rd Psalm of the shepherd and the sheep, it's familiar to us. And the more we understand that relationship between the shepherd and the sheep, it is a relationship in which the one that is in charge is a servant, that he sacrifices, that he gives himself for the sake of those, the greater gives himself for the sake of those who are lesser. The more we come to understand ourselves and our struggles with sin and our own weakness, our ignorance about so many things, our stubbornness, our proclivity to make the same mistakes again and again and again, the more we come to understand that we are sheep. But the Savior loves us anyway. But the passage that will come up in discussion here in my household as we look at the things done, the deception, the wickedness, the evil, the intentional, malicious acts that are carried out, this verse, John 10:10, comes up very often because the thief comes to steal and kill and destroy. Jesus came that we may have life and have it abundantly. But the enemy, the lords of this world who serve the Lord of darkness, they come to steal and kill and destroy. There is no goodwill in what they do, and they can try to package it however they like. They can try to present it however they might. Their intention is to steal, to kill, and destroy. And I always want to, in my teaching and my presentation, make this clear. We are in a struggle. We are in a fight. We're in a fight that has been won. Jesus won when he hung on the cross and said it is finished, and then on Easter Sunday rose from the dead victorious. And so also we are victorious. But understanding in this struggle, understanding the nature of the opposition, the nature of the enemy, their intent, what it is they desire, while we are spiritually safe under the umbrella of protection that our Good Shepherd provides as he comforts us and protects us with his rod and his staff, we need to be aware. We need to be informed so that we are not deceived, so that we are not standing around confused and dazed like sheep looking at the enemy and not knowing what to do, not understanding what is happening. So I wanted tonight to look at, let's see, didn't quite have everything exactly in place. Here on our website, we've got a lot of resources for you, and we're going to go to one of them now. Over here in our knowledge bases, the document knowledge base, and these different things that we're talking about tonight, they're all here. I'm just using the one to show you how to get to this. So if we go to health, and you can scroll down here to Big Pharma, because that's what we're talking about tonight. And you come down here, and it's Rockefeller's Takeover of Medicine. And this is an excerpt from G. Edward Griffin's A World Without Cancer, a book he wrote some time ago. And it's right here. The PDF is right here. You can scroll through and read it. You can download it from this site. And I do encourage you. That video that I spoke of earlier about the herbalist talking about these peer-reviewed scientific studies on the benefits of natural compounds and how they work to prevent transmission of disease, the big disease, and many others. My wife suggested to me, can you download that? And I said, yes. I have I've got a massive portion of my hard drive that is videos that I have downloaded. And when I started, just a point of interest, when I started this endeavor, I started really doing research. And as I did that, I learned how to use a program to download videos off of YouTube that I found helpful. And at the time, there was just something in my head saying, these might not always be up here. And lo and behold, when I started my website up and started these knowledge bases up, put that functionality into my website, I went to pull these videos up and they were scrubbed off of YouTube in the great purge that happened a few years ago. So thankfully, I had them. And you can go, and if you go here, the knowledge bases, video knowledge base, it's going to look the same, but this is for videos, and the menu is here to go down to different areas of interest. I've got all these videos. Many of them were scrubbed off of YouTube, but I still had them. So they are available here. So if there are things that you've wanted to find out about, but you can't find the information anymore, I know I saw a video on this or that, we just might have it out here in our video knowledge base. But what I want to look at, we're going to look at this article by G. Edward Griffin, and we're not going to read the whole thing. It's an excerpt from a book, but I do encourage you to go out and take a look at this. Go out and take a look at this because it has very important information, and it explains in talking about how the Rockefeller Foundation took over medicine, and they did. They basically bought it. They bought it. You learn how these tax-free foundations work, and once you understand it, then you know how many ever years ago people were saying, "Oh, isn't it so wonderful? Bill Gates gave all of his money to a tax-free foundation, his billions and billions and billions." And this was coming from people who were fairly well informed. and I wanted to pull my hair out. I said, "Don't you understand how tax-free foundations work? Bill Gates has total, complete control over that money. They pay for his G650 to fly him all over the world, polluting the environment. But there's no taxes that have to be paid, and he can do anything he wants with that money, and no one has any control over it except for him. And when he's gone, whoever is the directors of that foundation. And they have fantastic wealth. It grows and it grows and it grows, and they never have to pay taxes on it. And they use it to influence everything. Do you know Bill Gates? Go to your news feed. Not so much lately. Now it's Elon Musk. But for the longest time, every time you went to look at whatever news feed, there were stories about Bill Gates there. Do you know why? Because he actually paid major media outlets, because you can give the money to things that aren't tax-free organizations, to put stories out there about him. That's why he was always out there during the whole cornholio pandemic. He was paying them to put him out there so that he was guiding and directing the thinking, telling people what books he was reading, all the other nonsense. Let's get to this. And the Rockefeller takeover of big medicine. The Rockefeller Foundation was founded in 1913, and at the time, his wealth was astronomical. If adjusted for inflation, it was an incomprehensible amount of money that he had. And he had realized that there was only so much profit to be made selling oil. Standard Oil was Rockefeller's baby, right? But he realized that there were chemical derivatives of oil that could be used for other things. Wouldn't it be nice if they started to create medicines from these synthetic compounds and everybody used them? And so what they did, they went to different medical institutions, and you read this article and it will tell you that when this whole thing started, there were 160 medical schools in the United States. And it lays out medicine at the time was a complete disaster in many regards. You could mail in and get a medical degree. So there were a lot of issues to be addressed. But what they did, they went to the different medical schools. They took over the AMA first, but they also went to the medical schools and they said, "Hey, we would like to, support you guys." And once they gave them money, then they said, "If we're going to support you, we'd like to have some input on what's going on." And so then it was their people that they picked who were put on the board of directors of all these different medical schools. And the next thing you know, along with their takeover of the medical institution through the American Medical Association and the American Medical College, they had complete control over medicine. And within like 15 years, the number of medical schools went from 160 down to 80. And in that purge, all of the homeopathic medicine schools, the good ones, went away. There were only a few left. They came up with the term, it was a psyop, they came up with the term quack in order to debunk anybody who practiced homeopathic medicine. So this is an excerpt, and I'll just read this, then we'll move on to the next story. But this is an excerpt from a committee report. 1953, B. Carroll Reese, senator from Tennessee, had a committee to investigate the power of these tax-free foundations. And I've read a lot about this. It's mind-blowing how brazen they were. But his chief investigator, it got shut down because they have power, they have money, they pay for politicians, they pay for entertainment. Try to watch a TV show, and I don't have cable TV, I don't see that, but now there's Freevee on TV, and you see these things, and you get to watch it, but there are commercials, and a lot of them are pharmaceutical commercials. They pay their way, and as a result, what's Fox News going to say anything bad about the medical industry and the pharmaceutical industry? They're not. They pay the bills. They keep everything on the air, and they do the same thing in Washington. The FDA, along with other branches or administrations of the government, the FDA is a captive agency. Everyone who works there in a position of importance comes from the pharmaceutical and food industry. They go and work there for a while, and then they go back to work for Pfizer or Moderna or ConAgra, whoever, and then they go back again to the FDA. They regulate. They don't really regulate, but they pretend to regulate themselves. But this was the statement that Norman Dodd, the chief investigator, made in the final report. The result of the development of the operation of the network in which the foundations, tax-free foundations, by their support and encouragement, have played such a significant role, seems to have provided this country with what is tantamount to a national system of education under the tight control of organizations and persons little known to the American public. And with that education, he's talking in large part about the medical schools, but it went beyond that with all education. The curriculum in this tightly controlled scheme of education is designed to indoctrinate the American student from matriculation to the consummation of his education. They control the curriculum at the colleges. They make sure that the people who end up in teaching positions are interested in research, which really meant pharmaceutical research. And that's why I say doctors go to med school to learn how to prescribe medicine. I asked a few different doctors that I know about how much nutritional training they got in college, and they said, or in med school, and they said basically it was like an afternoon seminar was all the more that they got as far as nutritional education. So they took over medicine. Go read that article. It's here on the website. I'll put a link in the description. They took over medicine. Okay. And kind of the overarching theme of this is, why would we trust these people? Are they really interested in our well-being, or are they interested in people who are always sick and therefore they need to continue taking their synthetic compounds to treat the symptoms and not really cure anything? And that's the point of the book, A World Without Cancer. There are all kinds of ways for different cancers to be cured. You can't make money off of it. You can't make money off of B17. You can't make money off of the other things that directly combat cancer because they're natural compounds. It's not about making you healthy. It's about keeping you taking their pills. It's about patent medicine. They patent it and you have to pay for it. You can't patent dandelions. You can't patent green tea. You can't patent B17. You can't make money off of it, and so they have no interest in it, and so we don't hear about it. Next story. This particular story is from Natural News. There are more sources on this. It is a mind-blowing thing that after World War II, hopefully you know about Operation Paperclip. That's where we brought all of these German scientists and people who tortured people in death camps and people who built rockets and other technology. We brought Nazis. We brought them over to the United States, about 80 of them, so that they could advance our science here. It is Operation Paperclip. It is historical fact and truth. Parallel to that, there were individuals who were convicted that they worked for Bayer. It was IG Farben at the time was the name of this pharmaceutical and chemical company in Germany. And they worked in the camps in Nazi Germany. They worked, helped build the camps, used slave labor from the camps, and experimented on people with their pharmaceutical concoctions on people in the camp. Several of them were convicted. The prosecutor at the Nuremberg trial said, these are the worst people here. They're worse than the military fanatics in the Nazi regime. These people are the worst people. They funded the camps, they built the camps, and they experimented on people. Do you know what happened after these men were convicted? And there were 7 or 8 of them in particular. They were convicted of mass murder. They got relatively light sentences from 1 to 8 years. The ones who had the longest sentences before they had even fulfilled their sentences were pardoned, were set loose. And then do you know what they did? Well, this is one individual right here, Fritz Termeer, convicted of mass murder, served just 5 prison years, then conveniently became the chairman of Bayer's supervisory board. That's the board of directors. He became the chairman of the board of directors of Bayer Pharmaceuticals. And the list goes on. There are more listed out here that every one of these big companies, Bayer, BASF, and Hoechst, filled their highest position, chairman of the board, with convicted mass murderers. Now, I think this is important information. When you look at things that go on in the pharmaceutical industry, when you see things that have gone on recently with inoculations, with the stuff that's going on now, with the aftermath of that playing out on Monday Night Football, when you see these things going on, and the mind of decent people revolts at the idea. It's repugnant to us. It just can't be that the people who run these companies that are about medicine would not have our best interests at heart. And certainly not that for a long period of time, all these people are dead now, but there were Nazis running these chemical and pharmaceutical companies. But if you accept the historical truth for what it is, then you can look at things that happen in the history, the track record of what these companies have done and their subsidiaries and parallel companies that are in the same field. You come to the conclusion that, yeah, well, I guess they really do come to steal, kill, and destroy. And they're not serving the greater good. They're serving themselves and these lords of the earth with all the power and might and influence that they have are serving their dark lord. It is the only logical conclusion. You can find this in our knowledge database as well as other things, and you can find this. This is Pfizer, the corporate rap sheet. This is from corpresearch.org, and this is the complete list of all of the offenses that Pfizer has made, the penalties that they have paid, it is just mind-boggling what all they've done, what they have been fined. And I'm scrolling around here trying to find the things I wanted to look at. We'll just read a few of them. During the mid-'80s, watchdog organizations such as Public Citizens Health Research Group charged that Pfizer's widely prescribed arthritis drug, Feldene, created a high risk of gastrointestinal bleeding among the elderly, but the federal government, despite reports of scores of fatalities, declined to put restrictions on the medication. Wonder why? Who was running the FDA? A June 1986 article in The Progressive about Feldene was headlined, "Death by Prescription." The Food and Drug Administration expressed greater concern about reports of dozens of fatalities linked to heart valves made by Pfizer's Shiley division. In 1986, as the death toll reached 125, Pfizer ended production of all models of the valves, yet by that point, they were implanted in tens of thousands of people. We'll jump down. Faced with this growing scandal, Pfizer announced that it would spend $205 million to settle the tens of thousands of valve lawsuits that had been filed against it. Even so, it just goes on and on and on. $60 million settlement. They're convicted of all of these different offenses. There's another one here that just lists it out in shorter form. This is from a legal firm. Here's a short list of the fines and penalties. Pfizer received the biggest fine in U.S. history as part of a $2.3 billion plea deal with federal prosecutors for mispromoting medicines, Bextra and Celebrex. I don't know how many Celebrex commercials I saw, and paying kickbacks to compliant doctors. Pfizer pleaded guilty to misbranding the painkiller Bextra by promoting the drug for uses for which it was not approved. $2.3 billion plea deal. In the 1990s, Pfizer was involved in defective heart valves. We already looked at that one, but there was $10.75 million to settle that. Pfizer paid more than $60 million to settle a lawsuit over Resulin, a diabetes medication that caused, patients to die from acute liver failure. And you can just go on and on and on and on. Pfizer, the one who has profited the most from the cornholio inoculations, the government paying for them all. Pfizer is the most penalized. They've paid more fines. They've been convicted of more things and had to settle more lawsuits than any other company on the face of the planet. And you read through that list and you consider the other data that we've looked at tonight, and you can't help but conclude that these people come to steal, to kill, and destroy. They are not about your well-being. And the thing where I go with this is I wouldn't take any of the concoctions that these companies make if my life depended on it. If they told me this is what I still don't think that I would. Now, I'm not giving medical advice, and that'll be in the description below in the disclaimer. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just saying that I think that a sane, reasonable person looks at this information, these three different points, how they took over the medical industry, the Rockefeller Foundation, how these companies have been led by, at times, Nazis, and then the list just of Pfizer of all of the things that they have been convicted of, the fines they've paid, the penalties they've paid, the lies they've told. And you really do need to go and read this whole list down here because it goes on for quite some time. And this is just the highlights. And you say, why would anyone trust these people? What would possess you to think that trusting these people is a good idea. They come to steal, to kill, and destroy, and all in the name of pursuing profit. But thankfully, we have to keep our perspective. We have to make sure that these things do not burden us excessively and weigh us down and cause us to despair. And we remember that our Lord, our Savior, says this: I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He is the door. He is the door of salvation. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And the victory is his. I want to thank you for listening. I hope this information has been helpful to you. I hope that you're enjoying these live stream broadcasts. I know we've got a lot of people watching over on BitChute and also on Gab TV. When I put these out the next day, I encourage you, come out here on 9 o'clock on weeknights and join us for the live stream. We're interested in building a community. I am interested in sharing information that's useful to you. We as believers need to keep our perspective on what's going on, who we can trust, and what our perspective needs to be. This is Matthias 76. Together, we are decoding the deception. God bless, and have a great day.